Welcome, patrons. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the Dragon Age ride, but I keep getting more leads and finding more information on it, so in an effort to give me more time for that, let's head on over to our old friend, the pile of topics that doesn't take too long to explain. So, we have... not feeling it. Maybe next time. Nah. Here we go. Currency in Thedas. History. Before we dive into the history of the Thedas currency system, because surprisingly there actually is one, we should actually explain what that system is. Despite the game still having slight differences in how the money system works and various places using various names, in reality it's actually a very simple system. All nations, save a few factions, use a system of gold, silver, and copper coins. The names of these coins vary, as do what these coins look like, but the ratios stay the same. Now, the value of things in-game is a bit odd. In Dragon Age Origin and Dragon Age 2, things were mostly the same, but in Inquisition, while they simplified it for the player, in lore, the inflation went absolutely nuts. So with things like the actual price of items in games and perhaps even trying to calculate how much a sword would cost in real world dollars, you would need to take it game by game and not really worry about the changes in between, as the intent behind it is just to make things easier for players and not an actual change in the economic lore. Now, for the actual history of the currency, as per a very hard-to-obtain strategy guide and a forum post that is now deleted, the currency system was developed and popularized by the Dwarven Merchants Guild. They pushed for a standard currency to make it easier to trade with other nations, and with their influence, they could refuse business to anyone who didn't accept this new currency standard. This would force Thedas into adopting the gold, silver, copper standard. Now, this does imply that each nation used to have different currencies, but at this point in time, we don't know anything about it, minus cultures like the Avar and the Deluge doing some sort of bartering systems, and one would assume something was at least similar in pre-Merchant Guild currency. Now, supposedly the gold, silver, copper coins are not the only variation of currency in Thedas. There are also bars and strands, or bricks of unknown metal in stacked groups of coin, but these are only used in large transactions and most people wouldn't see these in person. Now, literally the only time I can think of seeing a bar in the series would be the obscure Dragon Age Legends Facebook game where you would find a bar of gold if you obtained a large amount in the game. Now, all of that little bit makes sense in the world. The strands actually kind of confuses me because it just sounds like large piles of coins, so I'm not sure why that needs a different name, unless strands have a specific value like a roll of coins or quarters or something, but we're not actually given what this value is, and it's such a small throwaway line that at this moment, I don't really know what to do with that information. It just kind of exists. Now, something to talk about is the language used in games, and I think I'm the only one who actually cares about this, but more often than not you will read or hear things costing a number of coins. Given that all currency is coins, what is meant by this? Quite frankly, I have no idea. The best I can give is that you need to look at the context. I combed through a lot of the codexes, novels, comics, and even in-game dialogue, and a good majority of the phrase was used in a way that implied that the X amount of coin was a lot, and silver and copper coins were usually specified. So, based on assumption only, most people mean gold coins unless this doesn't make sense in context. I also asked Twitter what they thought, and they, for the most part, also assumed it was gold coins. So I think this is kind of what the intent was. Differences. So far, other than the gold, silver, copper names we have for the coins in general, and that are used nationwide, we only have two nations with a full trio of names. Ferelden uses sovereign silvers and bits, and Orlais uses royals, crowns, and pennies. We also have a few other names from the other nations, but not an actual complete set. King's Golder or Gilder, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this, is the gold coin of Navarra, and the Double Griffin is the gold coin of Anderfels. Antiva also uses the Andris, which sounds like their version of a gold coin, but based on banter between Alistair and Zevran, 5,000 Andris doesn't actually sound like that much. However, I believe this is actually retconned to be a joke on Zevran's part, as much later in World of Thedas Volume 2, it's revealed that 5,000 Andris is known as one bastard and is used as a veiled insult in negotiations. Which, the fun thing about Andris is that instead of rulers stamped on them, they have heads of major guilds pressed into them. And the one image we do have of one of these seems to be Isabella. Now, something to note is what is written in the lore and what is used in games seems to be different. Despite the lore saying that Orlais uses the term pennies for copper, I couldn't find a single instance of penny in the entire series so far. Meanwhile, in Dragon Age 2, the copper coins were called bronze in the in-game currency, but I couldn't find an instance of them being called anything other than coppers either. And while you would think that Tevinter Knights would reveal what Tevinter calls their coins, it seems that the entire novel either uses gold, silver, copper, or you are one specific writer who only used sovereign the entire time, and it doesn't actually make that much sense. But I don't really want to call them out because this is such an inconsequential thing to put someone on blast for, and I quite like the stories they wrote anyways, so it really doesn't matter, other than the fact that I think we can conclude that this is just another error in the Tevinter Knights editing. But anyway. In general, when currency is being referenced, it's using the term gold, silver, copper, sovereigns, or crowns. Very few times was bits. I think once Andres is being used in Dragon Age Origins, and that's really only it as far as what has been used in the series. Now, I'm slapping this section on here because I'm not sure this even fits in with the subject, but let's talk about coins in general. So in World of Thedas Volume 2, there is a little random bit about unusual coins, and it just seems like a fun little thing to throw here. First, let's talk about a coin called Andraste's Tear, which was basically a glass coin with a bubble inside that supposedly held a bit of her last breath. Although when a collector smashed it, they remarked it smelled a lot like the favorite brewers of the glassblowers. What's more interesting about this coin is actually its value, as the entry state it's worth 100 gold or 5 royals. We've been told that the two are supposed to be the same coin, just different names. So unless this is trying to imply that only inside Orlais is this thing much less valuable, which could be the case as it seems to be an Orlesian coin and they would see through the scam, there seems to be a lore conflict here. Next is the famous Caprice coins. Now this is actually less a currency and more the Thedas equivalent of those penny stamping machines you get outside major tourist attractions. Maybe that's an American thing, I'm not actually quite sure. But Orlesian nobles would stamp them for events or for your house or something, and you would toss them around for good luck. It's not actually money, it's just a token. We then have the Imperial Tesserae. Here's it's spelled out, I don't know. But these are basically like cool ticket stubs for the rich in Tevinter. And again, they're not currency, it was just a token. And that's about it. You used it to get into events. The end. Now finally, we have the Traveler's Bend, which is less a specific coin and more a treatment to coins. In short, long ago, before the Imperial Highway was called as such, travelers would bend their gold coins to better fit into places that would be hard to find, like one's mouth. However, after reports of people choking to death and a madness that occurred in people when coins from Hunter Fell were found to be using lead, the practice stopped. So while these coins were once currency, and it sounds like they would have been the currency before the Dwarven Merchants Guild came along to standardize everything, this is actually more of a collector's item in Thedas. And that, dear patrons, is all that I have on Thedas currency. Do you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong, comments about your own fan theory? Feel free to tweet me at @Gildathon on Twitter, or send a PM to user Gillanon on Reddit. The rest are all.